Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Mike Mathuke and this is my programming series. So today we are going to be looking at loops. So basically loops are a way of doing a repetitive action in your code. And this may come in very handy. So in these loops, we're going to be looking at the for loop, the while loop, and the do while loop. Of course, we'll be doing it in Python and C++ as usual, so that we can get a contrast between the two high-level and low-level programming languages. So let's dive right in, and we'll start off with Python. So a while loop, we'll start with the while loop. So while, and then we give our condition. Same way as we do with the if statement. So we have if and then the condition. So while, then the condition. Then we can say, let's say print 5, for example. So if I run this, you'll notice that we just have 5 printing continuously and consistently. So let me just kill this. So basically, this will never end. It's a never-ending loop. There's no way for you to get outside of the loop, right? Because it's continuous. Because our condition will always be true. So let's create an array here and then loop through its elements. So we'll just create a loop an array like we had last time. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So and then we'll do while. So let's say we create an integer here, I equals 0, that will represent what index we are at. So while I is less than the size of this array, which is A, while I is less than the size of the array, we will print A at that index, right? So I can also rename this to index so that it makes more sense, right? Whenever you're naming variables, it's always best to name it with variables that make sense. In fact, let's do that for this array as well. So I'm just going to call it my underscore array. Okay. So it's always good to name your variables with names that make sense. That way you'll be able to know what they mean whenever you're running your code. It will be easier to read as a developer. So we're just going to print, and then what you're going to do is you're going to say add the value of index by 1. So here what you're expecting to happen is it will start at 0. We see that 0 is less than the size of the array. Then we print that value, and then we add the index value by 1. Then now we go back and check again, is index less than the length of the array? 1 will be less than the index of the array. So then we print, sorry, this is supposed to be my array at index, not my array at 0, right? So that we print each and every index that we have. So if I run this, then you see what you have printed is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, which is the array that we have. Okay. So I'll take this opportunity to do the same for a for loop, so that you can also see the difference. So a for loop, in this case, we'll use IND, right? We'll use IND instead of index, so that you can separate the two. So for IND, in range of length of the length of my array. So I know there's something that looks a bit new here. Let me just complete this. So I'm going to print my array at index, and then that's it. So in this case, we have a for loop, right? And then we have this function called range. So what range basically does is it gives a list of values within that site. When we put this in a loop, we expect it to do, so ind, which will be the index, will start at 0, okay? And then since our range is from 0 to 5, it will start at 0, then it will print, then it will go to the next value in the range, which will be 1, and then it will print, then the next value in the range, which will be 2, and so on and so forth until it reaches 5, where it will exit. So if I run this, I've made sure to comment this while loop out. If I run this, oh, my bad, here we have, this is supposed to be square bracket, not the normal brackets. So if I run this, you can see that we get the same result. We reach 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 5. So if I can put this range of 5, for example, comes as 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So this is the value of range. This is what range will give us. So you notice in this case that 5 is not included as part of the range. That's because it's 5 is the limit, but it's not part of the range list. So we start from 0 up to 4, 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and so that's why this gives us that we are able to print each and every index. So whenever we do a for loop, this index is just generated from each of these values that are right here. Okay, so it starts with the first one, then goes to the second, then the third, and so on and so forth. The same way we can also do the same thing with the array. So in this case, if I try to do, let's say, for value in my array, print value, right? So it's basically, we have this the same way that we have in range, but we want to go through each value of that array. So this will also work. It will also print 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this is also another way that you can use the for loop. It basically picks from the array and picks each value as they follow one another. But in this case, we'll only have the value and will not have the index of that value. Okay, so that's a for loop. Now a do while is only available in C++, so we'll just switch on to C++ so that we can look at the same loops as well as the do while loop. So in C++, we'll start with my array like we had last time. So we'll just make it have 5 values this time. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like so. And then in this array, we're going to put we're going to start with a while loop. So while, and then the same way that we have in an if statement of C++, our condition will be put in a brackets, okay, and then our scope will be defined by where these curly braces are placed. So we'll have while, so we have to have our index first of all. In the first place, index equals 0, and then while index is less than the size of our array. So you remember, our size of array is not as straightforward as we have it in Python. So we can just have this size of int. So we have the size of the array in bytes divided by the size of int in bytes, which will give us the actual size of the actual number of elements in the array. Also for this, it's not a must that you do it this way. You can also declare it as, you can also declare it directly. It's just that this is a bit more dynamic. So whichever works for you best. It's always best though that you put your code in such a way that it is dynamic, such that if we ever change the size of this array, maybe later on, we won't need to come in and change it here as well. Another way of doing that is declaring the size of the array beforehand. So let's say our size, let's say we have 5, and then we say our size here. So in this case, this must be a constant value. That's why you see it's complaining. The compiler is complaining. So constant is declared like so. Const is basically to say this variable will never ever change. So we have constant integer array size equals 5. So this is a new keyword that we've learned today. And then here, instead of having this, because you already know the size of the array, we can just do while index is less than array size. So that's also another way that you can do your declarations. So there are many ways in coding. There are many ways of accomplishing the same task. It's up to you how you want to structure your code. Sometimes this is the best way to do it. Sometimes the other way that we did it in the first place was the best way to do it. There's always multiple solutions. It's just which scenario fits the bill at the current moment. Okay, so other than that, let's do our while loop. So we're just going to do our printf statement as usual, %d, and then we'll print the value at index. So my array at index. Okay, so that's what will be generated. And then remember, in this case, we need to increment the index by 1. So plus equals 1. If you run this, so it has printed the values on one line. That's why it looks very funny here. So I'm just going to add a line break. So this basically means a new line. So we're going to print the integer, then a new line. Okay. So if I run this again, we have now them printed in from top to bottom, index 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. So another way we can also do this increment. So we have this increment operator. It basically says add this value by 1. Okay. So index plus plus, it says add by 1. We also have an operator like this. Plus plus index is the same thing. However, one is evaluated after the fact, and the other one is evaluated before the use. For now, either of these will work. If you run this, it will still print the right way, and if you put it here, it will still run the right way. Okay. So now let's go to our for loop. I'll just comment this out. So let's go to our for loop. So when it comes to the for loop, so what we have is for, and then we declare our integer here. So I'll just use int to represent index. Int index equals 0, and then we have our semicolon, and then now here we have our condition. So our condition will be the same as before, index less than array size, as long as sorry, using int, not index less than array size. Then the next statement will be our action statement, or rather our increment statement. So for now we have index plus plus, and then now we execute our print value here. So I'll just do it the same as we did before, /d then /n, and then we'll print my array at index. So I know right off the bat this looks a bit more complex than we have in Python. However, it's not very complicated. So what we have here is a declaration of our index, just the same way that we did it here before the while loop. This is just declared within the loop, and then here we also have our condition. the same way that we have it in the while loop here. And then for the for loop, we also have our increment statement, okay, the same way that you have it in the while loop. So they're very similar. It's just that they are structured differently. The for loop covers most of everything within its declaration, the same way that it was in Python. Let me just switch to Python so you can see. In Python, when we are doing our while loop, everything is separated. We have our declaration, then our condition, and then our increment. But whenever we were doing it in a for loop, if I return this to our original range function, you see everything, our condition, our declaration is done on the for loop. Our condition is also done in the for loop. Everything is done on the for loop, and all you need to worry about is now the value that you're going to be utilizing here. Okay, so that's the same way that we have it in C++. Everything is declared within the for loop, and then now you execute whatever statements that you need to execute. You don't need to worry about incrementing because it's already part of the loop. So if I run this, we expect to get the exact same result that we got before: 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So in C++, we also have the do while loop. So I'll just comment this out so you can do our do while loop here. So in this case, a do while loop is kind of the same as a while loop. Okay, so we'll just do our initial. So this time I'll just use I, so we can separate those variables. I equals 0, and then do. So what we're doing is printf of is printf. Same thing as we've done before with the array. We are printing my array at I, which is our index now. And then so do this while. So now our while comes after the fact. It comes after, sorry, this is supposed to be like so. So our while comes after our do statement. So while will be I is less than the array size. Okay, so in this one you also have to put our increment statement here. So this is basically the same as the while loop. The only difference is our do while will always execute one statement before it checks the condition. Okay, we look at that better with another example as you go forward. So it will execute the first statement. It will execute this first before it checks our condition. So if we run this, we expect to get the exact same result as before: 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we have a do statement which we enclose in this curly braces. So do this while this condition is true. So the difference between a while loop and a do while is that for a do while, the first statement will be executed. We'll always execute once before we check our condition. So I'll just uncomment this so that we have and then we'll just do while false, so that we can test it out. Print executing while. So I'll just remove that, so you don't need to have this. So this will be a while statement. I'll just delete the rest of this since we've already known. And then for our do while, we can put executing do while. So I'll just put also a new line here, and then I'll also make my condition here to be false. So to make sure that this variable is not here. So we have these two conditions. So while false, of course, we expect that if the condition is false, then we'll not execute this loop. And then here, the same thing. We have do this while false. So we expect that if the condition is false, then it shouldn't execute. So if we run this, we'll notice that we have executing do while being printed. And why is that? That is because we'll always execute the first statement before we check our condition. So a do while, that's the difference, the main difference between a do while and a while loop. A do while will be executed one statement first before we check the condition, while our while loop will always check the condition first, and that's the only difference that we have. So in Python, we do not have a do while loop. As you can see, the do while is not much different from a while loop. As long as you have a while loop and a for loop, you can use them to cover up for the do while loop in Python. I actually don't see do while being used much, but it's always up to the programmer. This is just a tool set that you have been given. Then how you use it is always up to you and your creativity and your understanding of programming. So I hope you've gotten to enjoy this lesson. I hope you've gotten to learn. And I look forward to seeing you guys next time when we do our next video. See you then.